All right, moving on to this next page. This page looks pretty full and it might look intimidating, but each of these problems is actually very simple and straightforward. We're just plugging into a certain formula to find some value, and there will be one of each of these types of problems on the test. So to find the area of each, well, I know that the area is pi r squared. And please remember, this is a formula you need to memorize. You need to memorize the area of a circle. Well, over here, the r is 5.2. You know that because it starts from the center. It touches the circle. This is a radius here. Well, it's 5.2. So area equals pi times 5.2 squared. Pi times 5.2 squared. Well, I don't know what 5.2 is squared. It's 27.04 pi. And in fact, they wanted us to round our answer to the nearest tenth. So all we're going to do from there is times second pi. And the nearest tenth would be the first place after the decimal. So 84.9 inches squared, since this is area. Okay, so for 11, we're going to do the exact same thing. R is just 5 this time. So area is pi times 5 squared. So area is 25 pi. And then we just type that into our calculator, 25 pi. This might be a little hard to see. So if we can get closer, 25 pi, just like that. All right, so then we get 78.5. 78.5 inches squared. All right, if we're doing circumference, well, the circumference formula is 2 pi r. And again, this is something you need to memorize. You need to make sure you have this memorized, 2 pi r. R over here is 11. Okay, so circumference would be 2 pi times 11. Well, I can times this 2 by 11 because we're multiplying all of these things together. So it doesn't matter which one I start with. So 22 pi, right? Well, they want it rounded again. They want it rounded. And again, they want it rounded to the nearest tenth. Rounded to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to do 22 pi 69.1. And now notice that our units are yards, but because we're doing circumference, which is just like length or distance, we don't square them. We just leave them to the first power. So yards. Over here, r would be 9.2. So circumference would be 2 times pi times 9.2. And I actually can do that in my head. That's 2 times 9 is 18. And then 2 times 2 is 4. So 18.4 pi. But if you couldn't, you could just type it into your calculator. That's fine. So circumference is going to equal that thing, 18.4 times pi, which is 57.8 inches. Moving right along, this next set asks us for the area of each sector. So when we see this sector area, we know that the area formula is pi r squared. And we know that a sector is just a part. A sector is just a part. So we're going to use that part fraction, m over 360. So instead of just r, well, we know r is 11 here, but instead of just r, we also need m. Now, m is the measure of the arc in degrees. So here's the arc. It equals this central angle right here. This central angle is 120, so m is 120 degrees. All right, so area equals pi times 11 squared times 120 over 360. And I notice these zeros can cancel out. Remember, we can only do this with zeros. We get pi times 121 times this fraction, 12 over 36. And I'm just going to take that. I'm going to do 121. And I'm actually just going to put it in my calculator exactly how I see it. So 40.3 repeating pi. And now they wanted our answer in terms of pi. So they want us to leave pi in there. So that's going to be meters squared because that's area. Area is 40.3 repeating pi. Meters squared is our units. Let's do another one. Let's do 15. We're still using that same formula. This one, area equals pi r squared times the part fraction. Except this time our r is 4 and our m is 45. So we're just going to plug those in. Pi times 4 squared times 45 over 360. Well, 4 squared is 16, but I don't know what 45 over 360 is, so I'm just going to leave it. Just leave it as you see it. Right? And then that I'll just type into my calculator. 16 times 45 over 360. Oh, interesting. Comes out to 2 pi. And some of them might work out that way. And then this is going to be yards squared because it's area. Right? So let's do this last set. Again, they're going to ask us for the length of the arc. Well, we know that an arc is just part of the circumference. So not C, but L for arc length is 2 pi r, the circumference, times the part formula, or sorry, the part fraction, m over 360. So in this one, r is 12 and m is 75, and we just plug it in. 2 pi 12 times 75 over 360 times into this parentheses right here. So we get pi 24 times 75 over 360. And then just plug it into the calculator. 24 times 75 over 360, 5. So 5 pi. And they want it in terms of pi. So we leave the pi in there. Right? In terms of pi. Leave the pi in there. Our units are centimeters. Then last one, 17. R is 11. M is 225. So L equals 2 pi times 11 times 225 over 360. Right? And times into these parentheses here. Again, I don't know what that is. I don't know how to simplify that real quick. So just leave it as it is. So 22 times 225 divided by 360. That's 13.75 pi, and our units are inches.